Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning.
You came to troll Dr. Abati today.
I think so. I think that might be it.
Fan, Dr. Abati.
I'm an Arsenal fan. We're in Arsenal red. 2-0.
And you beat Dr.
We
Abati.
did at home in the Emirates. How are we feeling?
We're feeling good.
You know, Arsenal now we're third on the league tables. I believe Manchester United are 11th place. So see what happens this season. It might be our time after what is it, 21 years? It might be. Finally. Good morning. Let me tell you about what is happening around the world. Now, just yesterday we were talking about the chaos in South Korea, and there's also political chaos now in France, where the government has collapsed after Prime Minister Michel Barnier was ousted in a no-confidence vote. Now, MPs voted overwhelmingly in support of the motion against him, just 3 months after he was appointed by President Emmanuel Macron. Now, opposition parties had tabled their motion after the former Brexit negotiator controversially used special powers to force through his budget without a vote. It marks the first time France's government has collapsed in a no-confidence vote since 1962. And it seems as though there's trouble for France in and out of the country, as French nuclear fuels company Orano says military authorities in Niger have taken control of its Semer uranium mine. Now, back in June, they withdrew, Niger, they withdrew Orano's permit to exploit one of the world's largest uranium deposits. Now, Orano then suspended production in the country. And we do know that Niger accounts for about 5% of global uranium output, making it one of the world's top 10 producers of a vital raw material in the generation of nuclear power. Now, before the coup, Niger accounted for 15 to 20% of France's uranium imports. Niger's recent diplomatic shift away from France and towards Russia has marked a turning point in the nation's resource management strategy, particularly concerning its abundant uranium reserves. Following the military coup in July 2023, which resulted in the removal of President Mohamed Bazoum, Niger's military junta has been taking increasingly bold steps to redefine its international partnerships, especially in the country's critical mining sector. So it's been a tough day for France, home and abroad. I don't think many of us would be surprised to see that there are more and more African countries turning their back. Even though Nigeria seems to be turning towards France, it is losing some form of its stronghold on the African continent.
So let me start with, everything is French today. I mean, the debacle. And you see, I was talking about strong institutions yesterday, and it's very apt. And that's exactly what happened to Michel Barnier. Michel Barnier tried to use a special law to be able to get his way in the parliament without getting votes, which angered a lot of people. And they went after him. Even his friend, and I use that word advisedly, because there were some agreements between him and Le Pen. All this were Marine Le Pen, and she had supported him. But she had asked for some concessions in the budget. The deficit also was an issue. They wanted to cut a provision that had close to over 60 billion. Yes. In the deficit, 60 billion pounds, if you look at it, over 49 billion euro, thereabout. And that really angered a lot of people.
Yes.
So she also said that bill was totally anti-people because it was supposed to be some form of austerity bill. It was supposed to raise taxes and all of that. So all of that had angered people. Yes. And when it comes to politics, the people come first. And Marine Le Pen is saying, see, I don't want to be in political oblivion. So once the leftist party moved a motion for a vote of no confidence, they went after. And they voted overwhelmingly. They were supposed to get 288. It was supposed to be 288 thereabout. They got 331. Everybody, all the blocs voted. Even our guy, the Jean-Luc Mélenchon and his Insoumis bloc, all of them voted. And they were ready. It was night of long night. So what are the two options? The two options are, number one, yes, he will stay on as caretaker for a while till they sort it out. But it's going to be hard for Macron because if you remember the scandal that happened after the last elections, it was difficult for Macron to get a prime minister because they were very divided. Yes. And his centrist movement didn't get that oomph they needed in the parliament. And see, it's even more difficult because a lot of people are beginning to call for Macron's resignation, but he says he's not going anywhere. And I say it's more difficult because when this happened in 1962, Georges Pompidou then was the prime minister. That Pompidou's government, de Gaulle and Pompidou's government, de Gaulle was very French in nature. Guess what he did? He went to the French people and he got a majority.
Right.
I dare Emmanuel Macron to go to the French people. He can't try it. Enough fits. Because people, the popularity rate is very low. People don't believe in him. All the reforms he said he was going to do in his book, La Révolution, nothing has happened. It's met a lot of brickbat. Is it from the Gilets Jaunes protesters? I mean, it's just been chaos all the way. So we need to be careful. He needs to be careful. He needs to go through this balancing act. In the wings too, Le Pen too is also orchestrating and saying, can this man fall so that I can get my way? But I pretty much
doubt.
She
needs to make sure that she
doesn't fall and
find herself in prison too.
France, so what is happening is that the uranium company out there, a couple of months ago, they had pulled out some of the licenses between the French uranium company on the Atali fields.
Yes.
So when they had pulled that out, it had become problematic. And when that had become problematic, definitely operational issues, they couldn't ship out the uranium.
Agreed.
They had backlog of over $210 million worth of uranium and all of that. So once that problem happened, it was
this
all
is where
chaos.
we're finding ourselves.
So Niger is holding their ground.
Thank you, Rufai. Go ahead, Ayo.
All right, just very quickly, the last time a vote of no confidence was passed in France, signaling the collapse of a government, was in 1962. That shows just how much of a landmark this is. And, you know, one of the things that you've talked about, this whole, his finance plan and trying to get it through the back door, raising taxes, and very importantly, the election, the last election, which we talked about, whereby the centrists lost their majority in the House, is now playing out, whereby we're going to now see them wanting to be more represented and having their voices heard. In terms of Le Pen, she said that the government should respect the voices of the voters. So that's a veiled way of saying that the voters have said that they want the left wing and also, well, the far left in terms of her party, RN party, and that should also reflect in appointments, because the appointment of Michel Barnier itself was a bit controversial. They felt that since they had the highest, that's the left wing, had the highest number of members in parliament, they ought to have at least been considered for that position. He didn't help himself again by the actions he took afterwards. Like you said, I love how you drew the correlation just at the beginning with what happened in South Korea yesterday. A lot of upheavals, if you notice, around the world in politics, from Botswana in Africa to South Korea in Asia and in Europe. A number of changes are happening, especially at leadership levels, and it's just interesting to watch. With that is that the president is also increasingly not as popular as he was. He's halfway into his second term as president, and unfortunately his popularity seems to be waning. And decisions like this would be very important in the next few days, months, and towards the end of his tenure to see just how well he will buy the confidence and maybe the love of the French people again. But it looks very difficult. I don't know how they're going to recover from this. It looks like the left wing will be gaining more ground in France at this time. And again, he's also losing popularity even outside in terms of diplomatic relationships with countries. Look at Niger, for instance, that we talked about this morning, and other countries where France had quite immense influence. It's quite sad. He's had quite a good run thus far, but it seems that at the end of his tenure, he's losing popularity. So let's see how that would work out for his party in the end.
Thank you,
Okay, I'll run through the key editorial points very quickly, and I'll be very quick about it. What has happened in France? 574 deputies in the House of Parliament, 333 belonging to the left wing and to the far right, and then 331 of them voted to remove Michel Barnier, the shortest-lived prime minister or premier since 1958, when the Fifth Republic of France began. What was his offense? There was a clause in the budget that he was trying to push, about 6 billion euros, or is it 60 billion euros, to push through tax cuts, spending cuts, which people oppose, because the deficit, the deficit in the budget for 2024 is calculated at 6.1%. And, the fact that 0.9%, the borrowing costs had grown by about 0.9%. And that was why Michel Barnier, former EU Brexit negotiator, was able to say, well, even if you remove me, I don't care. But the issue is about the economy of France. What are the implications? One, it means Macron will need to appoint another prime minister very quickly. will he do it, or he will ask him to continue in an interim capacity. Whatever it is, his removal, because he will have to resign today, means that whatever unfinished business his government did not do will remain pending. 3, I think Macron is a victim of his own decision. When he called a snap election in June, July, then of course, it means that that decision is probably not wise after all. He has been asked to resign. He says he will not resign. His tenure ends in 2027.
Yes.
But whatever it is, from all the editorial points, France is in turmoil. And the fear is that this could have implications, not just for the stability of the Fifth Republic, but also across Europe, where there could be some knock-on effects, as Barnier predicted, in terms of economic relations with allies.
Agreed.
In the third largest economy. Now to go to Niger very quickly. Now, when the military seized power a year ago, in July last year, they made it very clear that they were going to renegotiate, reconsider all the mining licenses. Not only Niger, Mali also.
Yes.
Burkina Faso also.
Yes.
Now, Niger is the 5th largest exporter of uranium in the world. It's its major export. And you have the French people in charge through a company called Orano, as you pointed out. Now they suspended that license in July, and now Orano says they've taken over the mining areas. One of the points made by the defense chief is that when they seized power, France refused to recognize them. And why should they do business with a country that does not recognize them? This is a colonial power. They might as well get out. In Senegal, they've closed down military bases. In Burkina Faso, they've turned against the French. So this is another demonstration of the French losing power in Africa and influence. And then also, it's not just France that is being targeted. In Mali, you will recall that the Resolute Mining Company, 3 of their officials that went there on a visit, they were detained until they were forced to pay $60 million. So you find these Francophone countries, protecting their assets and resisting colonialism. What the romance with Turkey and Russia means for the sub-region is another issue that we will have to consider.
Another time. Thank you all for your great analysis. Let's move on to our newspaper headlines across the globe. And of course, we begin here in Nigeria, the front page of This Day. Now, This Day this morning leads with a quote from the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, who argues that the derivation formula in the tax reform will reduce inequitable distributions of any type of resources. Now, he stated that some states pushing back on the proposed 60% value-added tax derivation formula may end up with 100% if the courts eventually decide to do so. And also on the front page of This Day is, of course, the This Day Award nominations. Now, the This Day Arise Group Board of Editors on Wednesday have began to invite invitations for nominations for various categories in its annual award ceremony billed for 2025, aptly tagged, "When the going gets tough, the tough get rewarded." So the awards will cover several categories, mostly for, as we've said, the tough and resilient, including the men and women and the institutions rebuilding democratic Nigeria. These award categories include Titans of the Year for the men and women who, through their vision, action, guts and courage, have made a lasting impact on Nigeria, as well as the Man of the Year for the man who has significantly influenced major events that defined 2024. Also available for nomination is the Woman of the Year award, reserved for a woman who has significantly influenced major events that have defined the year 2024 here in Nigeria. Now, other awards categories include Bank of the Year for the bank which has used innovation, technology and inclusion for growth in earnings and shareholder value, as well as the Banker of the Year for the banker whose leadership and impact has changed banking in Nigeria for good. Let's not forget there are so many other awards: Global Bank of the Year, Brand of the Year 2. We've got Company of the Year, Governor of the Year, Senator of the Year, Representative of the Year, Government Agency of the Year, Investor of the Year, and Young Global Leaders of the Year. A huge list of different categories. Nominations are now open. You can nominate whomever you want. You can send an email to the email you can see on the screen. It's also pasted on all of our social media profiles, and you can take a look and see which categories you want to notify. So these are the categories that we've discussed for the This Day Arise anniversary celebrations. Will be taking place in January 2025. But yes, it is now time to put your nominations in. Let's continue with the rest of our newspapers. Oh, okay. We do have the space to talk about this. I know. See, when we were talking about all of these different categories, a lot of people came to my mind. So I will be, taking the analysis into consideration when I put my nominations in. Do you guys know who you'll be? Well, you don't need to share, but have you thought about who you'd like to nominate?
All I'm just going to say is it's an award that has come to stay since it started. It's an award that has constantly rewarded excellence.
Yes.
And it's an award that, it's very highly competitive. Because anytime This Day Arise does something, everybody wants to be part of it. And it's also going to be a celebration that day of our 12th anniversary.
Yes.
I mean, which day?
This is at 30.
At 30. Exactly.
30. But it was just some minutes back that I used to see that our first 10-year celebration that we did.
Yeah.
Just forget, it just shows how time flies so fast. So, I mean, now you can see that was in 2020 when we had another grand day and the Who is Who, was there. The presentation was made. I was at that event. That was, it was a very glorious one, captains of industry and all that. And the performances, only God knows who these days bringing this year.
I know, but I don't think I can say.
Tell me.
But it's going to be major.
It's going to be major.
She's a Motown legend, but I can't say
She's a Motown legend! Oh my God.
I can't say anything
But in
else.
2020, it was John Legend. If you remember, we had goodness.
Do you know, I've never been to a This Day party
Really?
I've missed all of the fantastic performances.
Really?
So that's why I'm adamant that I must be here for this one.
Good.
But it's going to be major.
But anyway,
I'm told.
Since you've told me it's a Motown legend, I get to talk about it.
All right, first of all, congratulations to the This Day Media Group comprising This Day and, of course, Arise 3012. That is so 30 years of This Day newspaper and 12 years of Arise News. And just the great way they've chosen to celebrate by honoring people who have worked hard against all odds to really, really grow, whether their company or their community, make an impact.
Right.
And I really love that the process of the award is transparent in such a way that people, calls for nominations have been made. It's now formally open, and you can send an email to submit. I did have some names in my mind when I saw the announcement. So you can send your email to awards2025@thisdaylive.com or awards2025@arise.tv. Send your nominations for any of these categories, and any governor, government agency, bank. This is time to reward the banks that have been faithful in the last year. But I know the big one is usually the Man of the Year and the Woman of the Year. And I think the biggest for this year is the Titans of the Year. Right. It's really important for us to celebrate people whilst they're still able to smell their flowers. Absolutely. I saw Dr. Herbert Wigwe, one of the footage there, and it's great to know that he was acknowledged for the great strides that he made while he was here with us in the banking sector in Nigeria. So looking forward to seeing the names that would emerge. We see Globalcom as People Brand of the Decade. We saw Tony Elumeli there. That's Segun Agbajo of GT Bank. Let's see if they will be in the running this year, despite the hitches they've had. But really, really great one, and I'm looking forward to a colorful ceremony in the way that only this day can do it.
I mean, Dr. Bati.
Well, I have a position on this. What impresses me about this is the rider. When the going gets rough, the tough gets rewarded, which is a reminder that, look, our society is very tough. People can't even have access to many things. The economy is on a downward slope, so many challenges in the environment. And yet, in spite of the moral turpitude that this society faces, there are persons who continue to excel in various aspects of life. And such persons need to be iconized, recognized, and, compensated via recognition in terms of, awards and all of that. So I think that thematic thrust is what is instructive for me, not the personalities, the thematic thrust. The board of editors of this day will make their choices. Some other people may have other choices, but that's open to interpretation. But it will also be an opportunity for the Arise This Day Media Group to celebrate years of service, to the community in terms of literacy, in terms of enlightenment, in terms of education. However, there's a second leg to the analysis. When this awards thing started in the media industry, I was there. I've been around for quite a while.
No, it was you, as young as you are?
Yes, I've been around for quite a while. It was something that was questioned academically, whether media houses should be giving awards to the same persons, that they criticize, to the same institutions that they interrogate, and that could, raise some other questions. But over the years, that initial, objection to media houses giving out awards had become academic to the extent that when you look at the functions of the media, it includes establishing values, raising standards. Okay. And I think that in an environment such as ours, where standards are falling, values have collapsed, those persons who are making a contribution deserve, to be pointed out as examples for the rest of the community. And that will be consistent with the role of the media under Section 22 of the Constitution and Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution. So to that extent, those who will return to that academic argument may not have, any point. So we look forward to the celebration on January 25, and we hope that people will put in their nominations.
Yes.
Is it 22nd?
22nd, 2025, yes.
22nd of January,
yes.
2025.
Yes.
So we look forward to it. And of course, there will be implications. Would there be implications?
Absolutely.
Even members of the Arise Media Group. We are the real award winners.
Perfect. I believe so.
Don't you think so?
You. I believe so.
We should get implications too.
But by any chance, are you still owing the implications? Even you.
Yeah, we said Friday.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Adefemi is also
of the closing, yes. Is it the end of this month?
Yes.
With the chocolates.
Yes.
Yes, chocolates.
So we want to drink and wine.
All of that. That is tomorrow. That's tomorrow. So for our wonderful viewers who will be nominating, please be aware that you have until the end of December to put your nominations in. As Ayo said, you can do so via 2 different email addresses, which you can find on our social media. But I'll tell you quickly, awards2025@thisdaylive.com and awards2025@arise.tv. You have until the end of the month to put your nominations in. Let us now move on to some other newspapers. Let them not say that we're only focusing on one newspaper. The New Telegraph this morning, it reports on the Senate buckling and suspending hearings. The New Telegraph also features a story on Netflix reportedly leaving Nigeria due to the economic hardship situation in the country. Now, but the thing about it, Rufai, is that at this point it's unclear because the Punch also reports that Netflix has denied having any plans to leave. So we'll have to wait and see. The Guardian too. So we'll have to wait and see and find out what this situation is, where this rumor is coming from. Now, one of the standout pieces this morning is by The Guardian. It is my Antimicrobial Awareness Week, and today's front cover article looks at how the abuse of antibiotics in Nigeria is worsening drug resistance and also is responsible for the deaths of 64,500 people every year. Among those deaths, unfortunately, 1 in every 5 children under 5 years are amongst those numbers of deaths. So very, very serious. And we also know that 85% of Nigerians are using non-prescribed antibiotics to self-medicate, which is contributing to over 1.2 million people suffering from antimicrobial resistance in Nigeria. Now, stakeholders believe that an emergency needs to be declared on the overuse and misuse of antibiotics nationwide. To the Daily Trust now, and the reports on the spate of insecurity attacks in Zamfara State. Police have blamed the latest attack on Lakurawa for what we're seeing. You see the picture headline story there. And then to the Daily Independent, it now looks at Nigerian and African airlines, which have seen a 10.4% increase in passenger demand in October 2024. While their capacity was up 5.3% when compared to the same period last year. That's according to a report by the International Air Transport Association. Finally, this morning, Daily Sun reports on the House of Representatives introducing a bill for the sack of officials of INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission, found to be partisan or members of a political party. That's what they said. Moving on to Ghana now, and the Daily Graphic's front page looks at the endorsements of religious leaders behind behind the candidates ahead of Saturday's election. And the Namibian takes a closer look at the election result, which we know has delivered the current vice president. She is now president-elect, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, and she is, of course, the winner of this election, despite, as we're seeing in this paper, some losses by SWAPO over the years. The headline says that SWAPO has lost 26 seats in the past decade.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Yeah.
I think we did.
we
got carried
did a
away.
bit, yeah.
So very excited about the announcement of the Midday Awards for 2025.
Right.
And congratulations to all the winners in advance.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Adefemi.
Always a pleasure.
See you again tomorrow.